Don't worry. And good morning, everybody. It is Wonderful Wednesday with John Scanlon. Now, John is all the way over in Ireland, and I met John in Las Vegas at Hypnothoughts Live. And John himself has his own amazing conference coming up, which I shall be going to. I'm very excited about it in Dublin. So I've never been to Dublin before, so I'm very excited about that, John. Now, John, you've been doing hypnosis for a long time. Tell us about you. Tell us how you got into it, because I literally just learned something very interesting about you. So please share with us, share with everybody.
Okay. So my name is John Scanlon. I'm Irish, obviously, and I live and work here. I used to be an accountant. In fact, I still am a little bit. I have a very analytical type brain. But around 14, 15 years ago, I kind of got into a headspace of meditation, Reiki, and that kind of space. And I was going through a fairly difficult challenge at the time. So it was something that kind of helped me immensely. And then I discovered hypnotherapy. Mm-hmm. Now, the accountant I've been has always been, and I'm not a creative accountant, a solution-focused accountant is probably. So I never worked directly for individuals. I worked for companies and helped them solve their issues rather than. So all I've done literally is take that and transfer it into people's minds these days.
Oh.
But I love hypnotherapy and the creativity that it brings. I love understanding logic, but I also love understanding the creativity. So I do my best to balance both hemispheres of the brain to allow for the logic and the positive emotion.
Yeah, I love that, because it is quite fascinating, because a lot of hypnotists always go, "Oh, I don't like working with people who are really analytical." It doesn't bother me. But and clearly it doesn't bother you, because you know exactly what to do.
Absolutely.
Because you can actually use their language with analytical people. You know what they need to hear in order for them to feel more comfortable and safe, so that they can actually bypass that critical faculty of if you like, the left side of the brain, the conscious mind, so they can go into that other, more creative side, the right side of the brain. And I just love that.
Yeah, my pre-talk, I spend ages on the pre-talk to a large degree exactly for that, because I work with analytical people, but I also work a lot with people with trauma. So it's taken away a lot of the fear and all the reasons behind it. So the pre-talk becomes the most important part of any session for me. And I know it is for everybody, but it's just the way, because I deal with a lot of what I deal with is trauma-based. So
yeah, and you know, same here, John. And that's what I train in the Bunny Talk process as well. Actually, it's the pre-talk, which my first session is like 2 hours, and I always give an extra half hour because of the amount of pre-talk that I give and draw diagrams and things. Which again, that's why I don't mind working with analytical people, because you just said, make them feel more safe and secure and understand it. The logic, and I love that you said that. It's the logic behind it, because then they get it and they go, "Oh."
Absolutely, they get it. And the other thing for me is to give them a strong why, and not only why, because obviously they've all come for a reason, but how. It's to break down a lot of the fears that go behind it. Because people think dealing with emotions is difficult, and it can be if we let it. But at the same time, the emotion that caused it is in the past, and when we actually realize that, oh, it's not actually here. It's just that it feels like it's here. So it's helping people to make that differentiation.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, so, and for me, I mean, one of the things that got me into this, and one of the things that I actually didn't realize that I was actually, and how I got into it, was because I'm adopted, and I've been living with the effects of adoption for a long time, and I didn't know it, because a lot of them were unconscious. But actually, as I went through the hypnotherapy journey, it actually helped me to overcome a lot of those issues.
Thank you for sharing that.
I work with adopted people right now, and actually at the conference I will be talking on the topic of adoption, because not many people are aware of how to work with adopted people, what they are, what the issues are, etc.
Yeah, and you're quite right, because there can be a lot of issues with that. My mother's adopted, and funny enough, my mother-in-law is also adopted. So it's always been, I've known it. And same, I've got a lot of friends who have adopted children, and it seems that they seem to be, and I know this isn't the same for everybody, but the children always seem to be absolutely fine when they're little, and then come the teenage, it kind of something happens, and for quite a few, it can turn a little bit nasty.
It becomes an identity issue, and there's three sets of people that are affected in the adoption process. Mm-hmm. There's the child, which as a teenager would really kick in when the identity issues kick in. I mean, that's the same for most teenagers. They push boundaries, etc., and so forth. But as a teenager, as an adopted child, you begin to think about, birth mothers, birth fathers, where you came from, all that kind of stuff. And then you obviously have all the other stuff that goes on as well, just with normal life. But you also have the impact on parents who adopt. And you also have the impact on the birth parents, whether there's one or two parties involved. Because often, there is that complicated relationship between birth mother and birth father as well. A lot of birth fathers don't know, and suddenly they get a knock at the door. A lot of birth mothers carry a lot of grief and shame and hurt from giving children up. So it's a hugely complicated issue.
Oh,
experienced it all.
A whole onion layer of layers of emotions there. An absolute roller coaster.
Absolutely.
So I look forward to listening to that one, John. Yeah, I'll be there for sure.
Yeah, that was one of the reasons that got me into hypnotherapy, because I've always worked with trauma, so that was one of the ones that got me into it. But it was kind of an unconscious driver, if you like, behind it all. I think I've described to a few people, myself and Sheila Granger I think we were probably the only two people who've done this, but we trained about 20 hypnotherapists last July on how to work with people with adoption or with adopted related issues. But like last year's conference was a significant event for me, because it was only the second conference and there was over 100 and odd people in the room, and it was just really amazing. But actually the most significant moment of my life was when that adoption training ended. It was like it had almost completed a circle, if that makes sense. It was more significant for me than the actual conference itself.
So it was like a healing for you?
It was like I'd suddenly met the purpose that I started to get into this for, without knowing about it, if that makes sense. That's the way it felt to me in that moment.
Yeah. And like you said, it came full circle.
Yes.
This is why you had to go through what you had to go through in order to help other people.
Right. That's the way it felt to me. So it was a very significant moment for me. And I suppose what it's done is it's led me to the power of hypnotherapy and how it helps people change, which is what the conference is all about anyway. Because it's not just about individual strands or individual therapies. It's actually a collective about how hypnotherapy can actually help so many different people. And it's quicker, it's effective. And ultimately, the object of the conference is to actually get hypnotherapy as a more accepted modality that more people can use. So it's like, it really is to get it out there, to get more people utilizing it. Less talk therapy and more hypnotherapy, for want of a better term.
Yeah, go into that greater part where everybody actually has all the answers inside of them.
Absolutely correct. And that's ultimately what that conference is all about. It is about true hosting events. It's about building community. It's about connecting people. It's about inspiring ideas. It's about inspiring speakers, talks. But ultimately, all of those steps behind that are about elevating hypnotherapy, for want of a better term.
Absolutely, it's such a brilliant modality, and what people don't realize is that they all go into hypnosis themselves every day anyway, and everybody's doing it, and it's like,
absolutely.
So it's like, as soon as people actually go, oh, am I? And we explain what it is and what it isn't, and then it's like, oh, and it's how you use it. And it's like, again, it's how often and you can utilize it. It's the most amazing tool that anybody can use. I especially love always future pacing people.
Yes.
And seeing themselves in the future doing those things that they have then created. I love it. Honestly, I could just I could like just shiver with the excitement of it.
Well, I'm like that, and it took me a long time to find it, but now that I found it, I'm never giving it up. So,
oh, that's fantastic. I love that, John. So, John, what inspired you to again? Well, actually, you probably just told us that you wanted hypnotherapy out there, and that is
well,
inspired you
do you know, it literally came around in the most peculiar of ways. In that, I mean, I've been interested in hypnotherapy. Obviously, I've been working at it, qualified in 2017 and just started working at it since then. And it's like, okay, so I went to the closest and the most active, if you like, place for hypnotherapy near us is the UK. And I'd been to Mike Mandel's training, and then he had done something in the UK. So I'd done a 2-day thing there, and it was around the UK Hypnosis Convention. And I kind of went and I got really fascinated. I met people. And I suppose for a while it was kind of plummeting around in my head going, okay, where do I do that at home? How do I connect with people at home? And I think it was 2022, because obviously we had COVID as well in the middle of it all, where you couldn't go anywhere for a couple of years. And it was like, I remember sitting there. So it was only 2 years ago, just over 2 years ago, because their convention's not long over. And I remember sitting in the hotel with two friends of mine and going, why don't we have one of these in Ireland? And they weren't even, and honestly, at that stage, Claudia, I had not met a single Irish person in the 3 or 4 UK conventions I'd been to. I hadn't met a single Irish person. So, why don't we have one of these? And I came home and I was like, this must be a mad idea. There's people at this longer than me. Why hasn't this been done? And no, it's a wonderful idea. That's fine, but what's the next step? And I kind of parked it for a month or two, and then actually purely by accident, I discovered that Freddie Jackman was having an event, or was speaking at an event in Dublin at the end of January, and I went and I just asked him, and he said yes. And then I spoke to Carl Smith, and he said yes. And suddenly it just took on like a roller coaster after that. So I think in May of 23, there was like 8 speakers and 50 people. In April of 24, it was like 20 speakers and over 100 people. And this year, it's 30 speakers and I don't know how many people yet, but closer to 200 this time as it goes. So there's a community that's built around it. There's connections that are made. There's people, there's WhatsApp groups, there's Facebook groups, there's people having ventures together. There's people, so ultimately it's about cooperation. It's not about competition. It's about lifting all boats so that everybody, so the therapists win, but far more importantly, so that actually the general public win, because they get their issues resolved quicker, more effective, and actually cheaper than any other therapy.
Yes, because, well, first of all, because they're saving time, because I know sessions can range from 1 or 2 sessions with people to, maybe 8, but it's like, people don't see us for years and years and years. Right. So they're saving all that time. And then, yes, so because they're not in it and involved in it for so long, then all the other health benefits, because everything Absolutely. Else, their relationships improve. The work colleagues see the difference and go, oh, what are they doing? Like you say, it's just the whole, because time is money. So
time is money, and if you're going to spend 6 months or 12 months at a counselor, continue, they have a purpose. Don't get me wrong. I'm not.
Yes.
But we know from the research that, in 4 to 6 sessions or even 8 sessions, depending on what it is you're dealing with, you're resolving most things in the hypnotherapy context. You could be a year and you still haven't. And I've had clients who after 3 or 4 sessions are dealing with stuff they hadn't even dealt with after 2 or 3 years in therapy. And I'm like, I was shaking my head half the time, to be honest. But I mean, it happens more frequently than it should. And like it's the freedom to then live. It's the joy on their face when they realize, that thing's actually over. They've let the emotion go from that, and they can actually get on with their lives. It doesn't define them anymore. Because, and there's nothing worse than seeing somebody and you know how to help them, but it's just not being able to actually help them. So I love when we can. And hypnotherapy is a wonderful tool to do that.
I agree, because sometimes, as you say, people, I just met somebody last night. I've been having therapy for 5 years now. She goes, I'm stuck. And I'm like, okay. So, she's coming in, and it's like, because people, 30 years they've been in various different therapists. And it's like, and she said, 3 sessions. And it was like, for that particular thing. So yeah, it's quite interesting how effective and efficient hypnotherapy is, and how
it is. And I think part of it, and part of the idea of the conference, is that it is designed to inform. It's designed to educate and inform and elevate. Ultimately, that's probably the 3 objectives. But it's and connect as well. Sorry, but it's almost like we know. It's almost like I feel it's almost like my duty to let more and more people know about hypnotherapy, so they don't have to suffer to the same extent. Not my personal duty, but the hypnotherapy world. We know the power of this. We know how people can change rapidly. And the idea of the conference is actually, let's get this more and more out there. And that will come through word of mouth. That will come through research. That will come through. I'm not going down the research road. There's others who've done that, but start to use that, promote it, but also the words of mouth. That client is then telling someone else and telling someone else and telling someone else, and they're being referred back, and doctors are becoming aware of it. And it's all about breaking down the barriers so that more people can access it. Because as somebody once described it, hypnotherapy is actually the original therapy.
Yeah, absolutely.
John,
I really love that that's your mission. It's very powerful.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, it's really, as you say, that is your overarching, the umbrella of it, and then all the other pieces come together underneath it.
Yeah, and it does have to come with community. It does connect people. It is about creating an empowering community where people can actually support each other, and can then move forward. Whether it's, there'll be people who will work together, there'll be people who will come together as a whole collective, and there'll be people who will just form different branches of that and will target their particular thing, and they'll start promoting whatever section of that it is, whether it's working with children, with anxiety, whatever. But it is about letting more and more people know, connecting people first and foremost, building community, and then starting to get the evidence out. And what's really pleasing for me, even at this conference, and it is only our 3rd one, but I mean, in terms of the depth and breadth of speakers and the topics that are being covered, everything from medical hypnosis, where there's 3 or 4 different, to working with children, and the bunny tuck process, and it's not directly children, or it's not all children, I understand that, but it is a process that you use with children, where there is so few resources, particularly in this country, in Ireland, so few educators that actually promote it and teach on it. So you've everything from medical to working with children, to working with trauma, to business. You've the breadth, you've the whole breadth. Because I tend to look at hypnosis, and this is my business head, and I will tell you that before I even tell you this, but I tend to look at it in a 4-stage process. And the biggest stage is stage 3. Absolutely. It is, here's all of the therapies, the different tools and techniques for individual therapies. But there's 3 other stages, which people focus a lot on the marketing side, which, if you like, would be stage 1. But what about from the time the call comes to actually booking them as a client? What about that piece in between? So that's actually being covered at the conference. And then when the process is finished, when the client has their issue resolved, how do we, do they come back for an emotional detox every 6 months? Or do you get referrals or reviews, or how do you move that? There isn't really anyone in this country who actually thinks about it or speaks about it in that same way, at least not publicly. So it's about just expanding awareness, empowering therapists to empower people.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah. And you're right, because actually I always get some really good golden nuggets. I think, oh, I'm going to do that. Or, yeah, I'm going to add that bit in, or that bit. Oh, yeah, I think, oh, I didn't realize I was saying that. Now I better change that out. It's those aha moments that we get from other people. And you can only do that by continuing your education and learning and putting yourself out there as well. So yeah, brilliant. I'm so excited for it. So
it's going to be wonderful. I'm looking forward to welcoming you to Dublin. It's going to be an amazing few days.
Yeah.
And there's so much to do around Dublin as well. So if anyone is coming, then there's stuff, either before or after. There's a whole load of things to see in Dublin.
So it's the Saturday and Sunday.
5th and 6th of April. 5th and 6th of April 2025. So it's a Saturday and a Sunday. It is in the Clayton Hotel, Liffey Valley. It's connected by shuttle from the airport. And then there are pre and post conferences, which there's only about 3 or 4, but we'll be doing those in the next couple of weeks. They'll all be out on the website. And and if anyone is coming over, I mean, it's a tourism
hotspot.
It's tourism heaven. So there's so much to see. I mean, talking to Shelley Stockwell, they're bringing a whole bunch of people over. They're touring Ireland for a week. From the Monday to Friday, and they're going off to see various bits. Hypnotists on tour.
Oh, fun! I might join them.
There's a lot of it'll be a good time. It'll be a good time.
Yeah, no, always. I mean, we are a wonderful bunch of human beings because the energy is phenomenal. Because we are.
And when you add the Irish mix into that, Claudia, it makes it even more.
That'd be brilliant. So and we'll put all the links in the comments for everybody. And if anybody is in Ireland and they want to work with John, again, we'll have John's website for you to work with him. So everybody, thank you for watching. Thank you for being on, John. And looking forward to Ireland in April. So it's goodbye from me, Claudia Rickard, and it's goodbye from
me, from all the way from Ireland. Have a wonderful day.
Yeah, take care, everybody. Bye.